That's it. Happy Halloween. It's over with. Let's get over it.
Not interested in Halloween today, Rob.
No, yeah, like I was just saying to you, like I am. It's just a Tuesday, and Halloween on a Tuesday just feels wrong. It should be like a Friday. I don't know.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's
I
different
mean,
every time.
yeah, it's always different. Yeah, it's not a day; it's a date.
But how you doing anyway? Have you had a good day?
Yes, it's been fine. It's been grand, like uneventful. It's been fine, I guess.
Uneventful, fine, good.
Another day of existence.
God, my God! All right, let's escape our petty existences and actually escape to the land of role-playing games. So, hello, ladies and gents, boys and girls, orcs and goblins. Happy Halloween! My name is Rob. Joining me as ever is Lloyd, who I was just about to introduce but has vanished. Do you want to say hi?
Hello.
There
Hi.
we go. There we go.
Hi.
That's fine.
I'm here. I'm just walking away for 1 second. I can still hear you.
No, it's all good, man. So thank you very much for joining me. So tonight we have two big old topics that we're going to be tackling, both about campaigns. One that is currently underway, 17 sessions in, 16, 17?
18 was the last one.
18, goodness me. So that is Lloyd's highly successful Against the Shadow campaign, which we'll be talking about first. And then later, we're going to be talking about a future campaign, one that I shall be running very, very soon, next week soon, Vampire the Masquerade. But to begin with, let's talk about session 18 of Against the Shadow. It was called the Blue Mountains. Lloyd, talk us through it, man.
Yeah, I had this idea for a session that you guys would like go somewhere to a specific place, because that's what you had said you would do last time. And then that didn't really happen. It was actually a really good example of setting up situations, not answers, which is something that people will say frequently. Like that you shouldn't create answers or for your players, you should create situations for them. And in my mind, what was going to happen was you guys would like get up and go walk to the Blue Mountains. That was going to be the session. And then you would get there and talk to some dwarves. And I had some stuff along the way that you could look at, that was like meant to be window dressing. But you wonderful people were all so keen to interact with every window that you saw.
We window shopped the hell out of that game, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I had this thing set up where some elves were going into the west. And they were just like going by, like they do in the film, where there's like they're walking through the woods and the hobbits are like, oh, that's quite sad. The elves are going. That's what I thought would happen. But actually, you were like, hey, why don't you come over here?
What I love is that, it's absolutely that scene, only we call them over and then start questioning why they're leaving.
Yeah. It's so rude.
It wasn't that rude. You made it out like we were being really rude when we were, I think we were justified in asking the questions we asked.
Right, well, that's what elves do. Like, they get old and then they, like, die. When they don't die, they go to Valinor,
But that's not the way they see it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. They're not dying. They're just leaving Middle-earth.
Yeah, and at the point where they feel most abandoned, two of their friends have just died, they're like, well, we've already lost two major players and now more elves are leaving. They're like, oh my God. Like, obviously, for those of you who didn't see the session or, we won't go into it too much, but there was like a sort of like a debate about whether the elves have, is it be leaving Middle-earth at the point where they are needed the most.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. I feel like it's implied that all of the elves just know that it's time to give the world to men. You know? Like they've just like somehow decided this in like hive mind. They're like, okay, we're all going, we're gonna leave it to the men, they can figure it out. And that's kind of what I think is that like maybe there was a council, a secret elven council, where they were like, okay, we're done, time to go. And they're all just like over the next couple of 100 years, we'll like all leave Middle-earth. The thing that I really felt
Yeah, I
was
like it.
that this elf doesn't have to explain herself to you, you know? Like, when you're like, why are you going? She's like, because I fucking want to. And I'm like, oh, get off my case. You know, like that's the position that she was in. She was like, I don't have to explain myself to you. I have had, you know, I don't know, more marriages than you have had lives, you know? Like, just stop. I'm so old. You're so young. You know nothing.
Yeah, like, and I like I like that like it isn't too overly explained why they're going. Like I always imagine, oh, it's just part of their nature. It's like a
Mm.
tree sort of growing and then withering. Like that's
Yeah.
it's just what they do. It's just what they do. Like it's just part of their instinctual cycle or whatever. But it felt nice. I don't know. Like I really enjoyed the conversation between us and them. Like my character Faroth isn't exactly in the best place at the moment, so he is picking fights,
Yep.
and not exactly for some of the best reasons. But like he's like he's still trying to be his same old him, but like it's just he's finding it harder, which I really like. I like that
Yeah.
he's like just struggling with these exchanges. Like now he feels so much more desperate. Like I don't know, like that's just the way I see it anyway.
I think that works really well. It makes a lot of sense too, because it was like partially Farah's decision that like led to whatever else happened, you know? So it's like it makes sense that he would like lose hope to some extent. I think Cyneric's gone the other way, which is interesting because Cyneric would have started off very grim and like saw that you can make a difference, and now has like gone the other way where he's the hopeful one and he's the one who like keeps the enthusiasm going, I guess, you know?
Yeah, it's nice. It is nice that we're a bit in flux like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that was like the first part of the session, which I thought was going to be elves walk by you and you go, oh, that's quite sad. But that ended up being like an hour of the game. Like it was quite a long session. Like for this game, it was a very long session. But that was a very long section of the game, considering it was just a conversation with some elves. So that went on for quite some time, and then you kind of walked some more, and then you saw what in my mind was an obscenely difficult encounter for you to try and get involved in, right? Which was you saw 3 horsemen galloping at full speed away from a giant warg and 20 warg riders. That's a lot. The way that, you know, 5th edition works means that lots of enemies are dangerous no matter what level you are. And that's a lot of enemies. 20 is a lot. 21, I guess, including the Warg King. And I was expecting you to go, there are orcs, we best move quickly if we want to like save the world and get to this alliance thing. But I should have known that you were going to go, okay, charge. I didn't think that you would do that.
Well, I don't think I'm not entirely sure that we would have had they just been running across the landscape, then maybe we would have hidden. But as they were chasing people that needed help,
yeah,
like that's what we do. And also, Lloyd, you must have known we were itching for a fight because
yeah,
I know I was itching for a fight in that session.
Like I was going to have that encounter happen later, you know, in the session. But I didn't expect it to be there, and so I didn't have a bunch of stuff. Like I didn't know what the terrain looked like. I didn't really have all that sort of stuff planned. I didn't have stats for those 3 Dunedain either, and stuff like that because I figured this isn't going to happen. They're not going to just like on open terrain chase wargs, but then you did, and that was a great fight. It was really visceral and vicious and like harsh.
Stunning fight.
Yeah, it was really well done. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, the influence of Shadow of War, which is the new sort of newish video game, which takes place in Mordor, was felt in that like I've been playing a lot of that game and I've taken some stuff on from that game, particularly in the way that they do orcs, into my own game. And that was a really nice fight. We got to see like 2 new characters fight. Got to see Cyneric like explode something. It was good. It was like brutal and violent.
Fighting in shallow water is one of my favorite images. Like it just up to your knees or whatever. Like it. Oh, like yeah. It just seems like rough and horrible.
Yeah, I think that worked really well. You killed that Warg King despite all of my efforts to avoid that. I really wanted him to make it out of there. but
we weren't letting him
no,
go.
no.
We were like, no, you're not going anywhere, mate.
And
not that I had a choice. I was dehorsed, but still, the others.
I had thought about like sending others, which I was doing, sending others after Cynric to stop him chasing. But it was too late at that stage. You had done like so much damage to the Warrior King between the lot of you, because you were just like hammering him, and you're all level 8. And you know, there was crits, and there was like all these arrow shots and everything like that. You were smashing him. So he was barely breathing by the time the explosion happened, and then he started to run, and he only had like a couple of hits left in him.
Well, the only tactic that I saw would work, because I knew we were massively outnumbered. My thinking was cut off the head of the snake, you know. Again, the shadow of war, man. Take out the leader, and all the underlings will flee, man.
Yep.
But yeah, Faroth got battered.
Yes. It's an interesting sort of shift in the way the party is made up, because we used to have Nar, who was whose job it was to like stand in the way and get smashed. That was like his
sorely missed.
Like, it wasn't his like character's role, but it was his tactical role. You know, like if we're talking about like the game part, he was the tank. That was like his job. You know, he was there to like absorb damage and to, you know, be able to stand up to all these scary things. And you don't have that anymore. Ostensibly, Board can do it, but he hasn't. You know, it's been one session, one combat, but he didn't do it that time. So it's interesting to see what will happen with that. Like, if the combat is going to change dramatically, because it has to, right? You have 2 different character classes now and 2 different characters. So I'm wondering, because I think after 16 sessions, you guys have come into like a rhythm in how you fought. You know.
And we went into it and it didn't quite work, which felt great, because it was like, oh, these guys are trying to find their feet fighting alongside new characters. And we were sort of just a bit like Barker went around the back, and I was like, that's cool and everything. And it made an awful lot of sense to start pressuring them from different sides. But like, I would have had Nar next to me, and I would have been sort of sharing the damage like we usually do, and it wasn't the case this time round.
It's kind of interesting to think of, because that makes sense, you know, both narratively and mechanically. Like, narratively it makes sense because you're not used to fighting with these people, and I think that like, well, you can see all throughout history that like, you know, armies that train together a long time are the most effective, like the Romans legions, or like Alexander's army or whatever, because they spent so many years together. They were like so effective because they knew how it all worked. And that like is what happened with you guys. You like got into a rhythm after whatever amount of sessions, and it worked really well, but now it's broken, and so they have to figure out something new out, which is kind of interesting.
It is, and it's something I hadn't even considered. Like, I hadn't even considered, oh, how is our fighting dynamic going to change? Like, even though it's like an obvious thing to think about. But then when we got into it, I was like, oh man, yeah, this feels really different. But like, obviously in a really good way, like, because the others were still pulling their weight. They were doing well in the fight. It was just, different. It was really exciting, man. Like, and again, to like, from my perspective, playing as Faroth, like, he was throwing himself in, like, not really giving too much care as to his own life. But the only thing is, I'm very aware as a player that doesn't have a very long shelf life. Like,
not in my game now,
doing that, like, I won't be as ridiculously lucky as I got. Like, I nearly got critted, but then Dennis's new character stopped that from happening. And I got massively mauled in that fight and just barely got out with 1 HP. And I thought, well, sense should snap out of this at some point. But
it's interesting, because I think like that makes a lot of sense if you're watching the film, that the main character who like has plot armor is like, I'm just gonna throw myself in. But the orcs don't know you have plot armor, you know, like and they'll just kill you, like they'll just stab you in the throat, you know, like they don't know at all, which is interesting, because I think, you know, they're supposed to know that you have plot armor, and they're supposed to know that you like are kind of being reckless, but they just see an easy target, you know.
And absolutely. And I wouldn't want, you know, there is no such thing as plot armor in at least the games you run anyway. Like, I mean, there's no, I am in no illusions after what happened to Nar and Syrian that can happen to one of us. So We'll see. But it was a great fight, like, and it felt super Lord of the Ringsy, like the chasing them initially. Like I said to you after the stream, it felt like that scene where the wraiths are chasing Arwen, with Frodo, like, and then we are sort of like matching their speed, like on the high ground next to them, sort of catching up with them, like galloping after them. Like, it felt amazing, and it really built up. We knew we were going to hit them at some point, but we were just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then when it did, and we hit them in the ford, like, it was just, it was nuts. Just the last second as well, when the Wild King was swiping out one of those Rangers horses, I think went for, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it felt great. Did you, as running the game, did you see some things that, say, Dennis or Barker's character was doing that made you think, oh, okay, like, I'm gonna have to account for that in the future? Or was it?
It was just one thing that Dennis's character did, which was to reduce the number on the die. That mechanic, because that can, I guess, potentially turn critical hits into normal hits, and that's really, really powerful. I'm gonna have to look it up and see, because I didn't check it yet. Because in a game where critical hits are so powerful, like in my games, they are powerful both on your side and their side. That can be, and especially, if you can use it multiple times, it can be really, it can lower the lethality of the game a lot.
Well, that's what I was thinking, and I don't like. This is going to sound really bad, but I don't like charity. Like, I don't like the idea that decision was made. Oh, because it'll, like, I say it will because it will help, the character out. Like, if I get critted, then fair enough. I should get the punishment. I mean, like, look at bloody Nah. Look how many times he got critted. Like, how much his base speed suffered alone, like, and his voice and everything else. Like, he got nerfed to hell by crit. So, like, the same should definitely happen to everyone else. So I don't know.
What I'll probably do is I'll allow it for rolls that aren't a critical hit. So I'll say if it's, if they roll a 19 and they have +7 to hit, and you reduce it down, then it doesn't hit. But if it's a crit, it's a crit. I think is what I'll do.
Well, yeah, maybe, because I mean, by the rules, I believe a crit is a hit. Like, no matter how, and if it hits, then that means, I don't know. Yeah, it's an odd one. I mean, I don't know, and I don't particularly. I don't know. Is it? Should I ask what he is? I don't know what he is.
Oh yeah, I don't think it matters. He's a warden, is what he is.
Oh. I don't know anything about them.
Fire, you guys. It's kind of bard-esque class.
That's what I was thinking, because I thought, adding the D4 to our attacks is very bard-like, yeah.
But there's some different ones. There's a counselor, which is very bard-like, which is like very good at speaking, and then there's like a bodyguard sort of thing where you can like jump in front and you can protect them, and you can and then there's a herald, which is kind of combat buffer, which I think is what he is, but I'm not sure.
That's very fitting.
Yeah. But they're all really interesting mechanically. I like them a lot.
Cool. And then we move on to the actual. He said some really horrible things, and I was wondering. I thought to myself, "Oh, do I?" He says some horrible things. The Wild King said, or was it one of the orcs? I can't remember, but one of them was saying basically. Yeah, he was like basically saying, "Oh, Nah, like, suffered at the hands of the Witch King, and he told all of our secrets, and he was like, I want to roll an insight to see if that's true or not, like, because I want to know." But then I'm thinking, well, battle like that, and the fact that in Lord of the Rings there are revelations like that where the characters don't know if that's true or not. Like with Frodo with the Black Gate.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Know. I love that scene so much where the mouth of Sauron like comes out and like, oh, it's so great. He's got the like chainmail, the mithril. So horrible. I wanted to have some of that. Yeah, I also think that it would be almost impossible for you to like incite a wolf face, like whatever about it being, even if it's an orc, like you might be able to tell if it's lying, but like they don't have like a warg does not have the same sort of ticks, and I think it would be very difficult to even try and understand how a warg would lie, or if it, And
I think in the heat of the moment, like we were in the middle of a fight whilst you were saying this, like there's no way of telling. Like, you're in the heat of the moment. He could just be trying to throw us off, but he might be telling the truth. Yeah,
Yep.
But I decided I'm not going to, because I think it's better that way. So, and horrible though.
Yeah.
I am curious, but we'll see. One day maybe we'll know. But yeah, anything else about the combat, Lloyd, like in particular that stood out?
No,
for you?
I don't think so. It's the first big combat I've run in a while. It's a lot of work running that many baddies. And I didn't stat them all fully because I didn't expect you to fight them so much. So I have in my mind just a general sort of like orc stat line and a general warg stat line, and then I kind of like add stuff here and there. But it was fine. It was just a lot to manage. I should have had I drew a map in the middle of the fight because I had to try and keep in mind where everyone was. But I should have had a map drawn for myself at the start. To kind of keep
know where we were going to fight them either.
No,
so
exactly. Yeah. That's the only thing I think I struggled with because it was very hard. And like distances are difficult when people are like on horses and stuff like that. And I'm just like not interested in keeping track of it all because
and neither will
we, man.
So we were like, whatever, like it'll take us a round to charge to get to them, and then after that, all hell will break loose. You just do what you want. And you said that, and I was grateful for that. I was like, yeah, fair enough.
I think that's easiest most of the time, like unless, you know, it would matter, and it did towards the end where the Warg King was trying to run. It mattered how far he was running, but yeah.
Yeah, but even then, like we can still take it from you whether he was in range or not. Or and I'm always going to be happy when you will say you can do this or you can't do this. Like And I mean, you say that like it didn't seem to me like you were struggling in that combat at all. Like the only thing is just that there are just lots of them. But you know, but to me, that makes, in a way, I really like it when there's like a huge combat like that, because it then makes you, one, really value your turn, and two, it's a lot of tension because an awful lot of things can happen before it gets around to you again, as I discovered to my detriment. A lot of stuff hit me like before I got around to my turn again, and I was like, holy crap. But it made it more, it still like, it added so much tension because of that. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's like some of the good and bad stuff about a big combat is that like it might be half an hour before your turn comes around again. In a huge fight, and you just have to kind of stand there and just be like, ow, 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 just getting slapped around, and then like wait and hope that you live. And I generally try and break the baddies into smaller groups because I had 10 archers in one group there. You know, which is kind of mental, because then what I could do and what I should have done is be like, these 10 archers all fire arrows at you, Farroth, and then you're dead. Right, because that's what they would do, or like tactically what you should do. But yeah, it's kind of tricky when you have that many, and picking targets is hard as well. I tend to just like see which character is being the most obviously dangerous, you know, and that's the one that they go for, you know.
Yeah, I agree with that. Whoever's like laying out like a whole bunch of damage on people, like that's obvious in a fight. You can see when someone's doing well, and that makes total sense in my mind. Really cool. Chris Wilhelm is here, Jeff Doe is here, Lawworthy01 I don't recognize, but hello, welcome. Chris Wilhelm is here from Drop Dice. He says, made it for once. Jeff Doty says, I hate reroll mechanics and similar mechanics to avoid crits and such. It always feels like such a tension killer in a bad way. I'd rather things like that not be in there most times. I've had some really annoying experiences with bards where, like you just described, Jeff, and how we were just talking about there, like bards definitely, like when you're a GM and you roll it and you see, I've got a crit on them, I've bloody got them this time. Or just a good roll, and then like the bard comes along and goes, nope. Like, it's just annoying. Like, and I know that's part of the mechanics and it's fair play, but it's still like, huh. So yeah, I can see how it can be a tension killer, but
yeah, I also don't like mechanics that affect things after you've rolled.
Agreed.
You know, like if it's before, if you're like, I'm gonna, do a thing now before the person rolls to distract them, that's fine. But after you're like, bam, it's a crit, and they're like, actually, hang on a second, how is that happening? You know, it just doesn't make as much sense to me. But yeah, it is part of the mechanic. Cutting words is like a big part of the bard, and such is life.
Such is life. Yeah, bards, man. Dropping a mammoth on my dragon. That's what stands out for me for bards, and it's really annoying. Jeff then says, you roll the nat 20 and see all the faces and the oh shits, then suddenly, no, just kidding. It's lame to me.
Yeah.
Jeff. Yeah. No, I get what you mean. Well, Lloyd, you're in the position where you can house rule anything. So if something does take the piss, then you can be like, no, not in this Middle Earth. So anyway, yeah, the combat was great, and continued on our journey, Lloyd, didn't we?
Yeah, the session went a lot longer than I thought it was going to, but then I wanted to include this final bit before we finished, which was there's a river that runs, the Loon River, which like runs a long way through the very west of Middle Earth, and I just in my mind decided that there was one bridge across it, and the rest of it was like unbridgeable or unfordable or whatever, it's just this one bridge, this like wooden bridge where there's a little house, and there lives a dwarf, an old ass dwarf called Dorney, who like has always, like for the last maybe 200 years, just like demanded a gold coin from everyone who wants to enter into the dwarven kingdoms. And it was a really like, it felt very Middle Earth encounter. It was just like, here's the problem: you don't have any money, and this guy wants money if you want to get in. Like, you could kill him if you want to, but do you want to do that? You know.
That was exactly my thought. I was like, we're not just gonna bloody like take the piss and murder this guy. We're gonna try and resolve it in some other way. But yeah, we'd never been confronted by money before, which is fine. Like, but it's just something that I'd not really thought about. And I was like, oh man, this guy actually wants gold. And I was like, would you have us ride? What I'm saying, would you have us ride miles to get some change or something like that? Like it was a great play encounter personally. Like I liked him a lot.
I wanted it to set the tone for going into dwarven lands as well, you know? Like, this is how dwarves are. They're specific and they're stubborn, and they are like a sucker for a technicality, you know? Like, he wants a golden coin, and like that's all that he wants. He's not going to accept anything else, you know?
Well, that's exactly it. And that's why I was like, well, it doesn't matter if he already has those coins. We're giving him gold coins. So technically, we met that criteria.
Yeah, that was really fun. And there was like a little bit of a burglary, and just like really enjoyed playing him. Like he just like interrupted you guys a lot, you know? Like, you'd be talking and he'd be like, no, just give me the coin. Just stop. Look, stop right there. Listen, son, all right? I'm not interested in whatever excuses you might have. I don't care what your mission is. Like, I've charged King Dane Ironfoot a gold coin to get over this bridge, and you're not him, so get the fucking money or piss off. You know, it's just really like...
I just loved how much he loves his job.
Yeah.
Like, he absolutely loves it. Like, you could offer him anything else and he wouldn't do it because he loves that job so much.
Yeah, and that struck me as very dwarven as well, like somebody who just like knows what their role is, you know, like what they're supposed to do. And that's like, he was born to be that guy who stands at that bridge, you know, and gives it everything he has, you know, all of his effort and all of his like lifeblood is poured into making sure that anyone who crosses the bridge pays a gold coin, you know.
I love that. And I like to think that maybe he'll be there. Well, obviously he'll still be there. Like, he'll be there for future play as well now. Like,
yeah,
he will find out. Like, I'm no illusion. Like, he will find out what we did. Like, he will count that on like an hourly basis, I reckon. And yeah, but it's still like, even knowing it, that he was going to find out, I was like, let's just do it.
Well, once you're past him, you're past him, right? Unless he like, you know, follows you and then gives out to the king about you or something, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And like, also, we've spoken to people and then never seen them ever again. Like Denethor, for instance, the guy who sent us on our mission. Like, we never went back. Which I find hilarious. Oh dear, no, it was great, man. Like I really enjoyed it, and it was great because wasn't that like we did that like for the second week in a row that time, didn't we?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. We can't play this coming Monday, so we did two in a row, which is nice. So the next one will be not this Monday, but the Monday after. And then you're
as
going to
usual, sort of really.
speak with some dwarves, which will be great, and we're looking forward to that. It's gonna, I mean, be some heavy role play with some real bastards, you know, like just
Yeah.
like like it was hard enough speaking to, you know, it's a different kind of bastardry is Fardred, you know, but like this is just like just dwarves, just so dwarves, you know, like in their
I really look
cities.
forward to that. And they're in their mountains counting their riches. They don't give a fuck.
Yep.
No, I'm really looking forward to that. Like, and yeah, I even with the things that we're taking to sort of appease them, I don't. It's probably not going to be very easy. But we did get to the Blue Mountains technically, and that was
Yes.
we needed to for the title to make sense.
Yes.
But yeah, man. Any final thoughts? Like anything you like would have done differently, or anything that you particularly what's your standout moment? Or
I really liked the moment where like Cynaric was like, "Oh, he's missed me with that thing he's thrown at me," and then it exploded. That was great. And I just really loved the like I loved the whole Nagor thing, but I really loved the little encounter with the dwarf. I thought that was like it's like it reminded me of the encounter that you had with the troll in the forest where Caius like beat him in a drinking contest. Sometimes we have those bits where something feels very Middle Earth and it feels kind of like fairy tale like or a little bit kind of like cute or you know, and like it's nice sometimes to have that instead of just like always misery, you know.
always misery forever. No, I agree. And like it was I not that I ever complain because like I just love the tone of the game anyway. I will never get tired of the misery in a way because it's great and like we're fighting against the shadow, it's to be expected. But every now and then when we have those moments of levity, like it is really nice. So I really enjoyed it talking to that dwarf. He was fun.
Yeah, definitely. There'll be more.
There shall be more. Okay, so that's Against the Shadow, and you can, of course, check out Against the Shadow over on Lloyd's channel, the LDM. Go and check it out. Do yourself a favor. I know I'm being biased because I'm in it, but it's really well worth a watch. It's a great game. So, moving on to our next topic. Earlier today, with the
Sorry.
what was that for?
It's me being a vampire. Blah!
Oh, I see. That's great, Lloyd. Vampire is it?
Blah!
I look forward to that in the game.
That's how we'll role play him. Yep.
Yeah, I'll be like, blah, like, oh wow, yeah, this is great. So anyway, as Lloyd has alluded to, earlier today I announced that I'm going to be running a Vampire the Masquerade campaign. It's one that I said I was going to run a while back, but then kind of forgot about it. And it's a setting that I have had a history with, but I've never run it. I've only ever played it. So this is going to be a journey for me. It is a brand new edition of the game as well. Version 5 is currently in alpha. For those of you that don't know, World of Darkness is a setting based in the real world, but not quite the real world. It is a act of real life where the things that go bump in the night are genuine threats to your life. And there are things hiding in the shadows. There are threats beyond your wildest imagination. And in World of Darkness, there are a number of books that sort of branch out into different supernatural phenomena and races. The two primary ones that are, I would say, the entry-level World of Darkness games are both Vampire, either Masquerade or Requiem, or Werewolf the Apocalypse. Although there's a few other werewolf ones, but I can't remember their names. Yeah, it's. I've decided that as this is, going to be a new edition, it would be a great time to jump on to start refamiliarizing myself with World of Darkness. And after viewing the live Roll Up and Die episode this morning, I was thinking to myself, yeah, they talk about vampires, but they don't really talk about World of Darkness. And I was like, that's like my primary sort of vampires in role playing games. I've run into them in D&D, but I don't know. They are really special in World of Darkness, and they feel cool and how vampires should, which is rare because with the oversaturation of popular culture at the moment with vampires, it is refreshing. Because World of Darkness is based in our real world, or something very like our real world, I personally feel it is very important to ensure that when running a World of Darkness game, you place it in familiar surroundings, so that when you do show those darker world, it is kind of, I don't know, it's based on something that's really kind of tangible. And that's where I'm going with this. This is going to be Vampire the Masquerade, London. It's going to be set in London, and it's going to follow the journey of some newly sired them being played by Lloyd, because I'm running this for Lloyd. He asked me to do it. And yeah, we're going to see how it goes. What is your background with World of Darkness, Lloyd, before we go into what this campaign is going to be?
I first encountered it like a long time ago with a video game called Vampire the Masquerade.
The buggiest Bloodlines, is it?
Bloodlines, yes.
Yeah, the buggiest. You could never escape the hotel.
A disaster. Yeah.
But a great disaster.
Absolute disaster. But like, I really loved it, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I was like a kid, and I was like, "What is this? Is so rad." I didn't fully get it then either, because I wasn't like fully engaging with it properly. It's the same way like I played Baldur's Gate as a kid, and I was like, "This is cool, I guess," but I didn't really like absorb it, Yeah. But you can go back and play Baldur's Gate while Vampire the Masquerade is just a disaster.
It will explode your computer.
Yeah. But that was my first exposure to it, and then I've always kind of been on my periphery of like role-playing games. I know that it's like huge. It's probably one of the biggest like out there, I think, particularly for LARP. It's huge, and I think it's very, very popular in the world, or has been anyway, and the various offshoots. I think Mage is very popular, and I think that like Changeling is quite popular as well.
Yep.
I played a short-lived campaign of the newer one, which I think might be Requiem.
Yeah. So I played a lot of Requiem,
which was set on a space station.
Holy fuck! Okay.
Yep. It was
really?
Wow. In the future. It was like a space station, a human space station, and there was like a vampire subculture there, and it was really interesting. It only lasted like it only lasted like 5 or 6 sessions, unfortunately. But I loved it. I really, really loved it. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with your character creation that really ties you to the world. So like, there's all these merits that you can get, like, your what's it called? Your haven, is that what it's called? Your home.
Haven, yeah.
And then like contacts and stuff that you have, and like servants, and like the opposite of that, like people who you serve and stuff like that. Really, really cool stuff like that. So I really enjoyed making the character. I really enjoyed playing it, but it was too brief. Now that wasn't set in the modern world, or even like the like a modern setting. It was like past that. It was sci-fi.
Sure.
And I think that it probably shines in like urban settings that are modern or close to modern. I think that's where it's meant to be.
I agree, because I have played a very brief game of Vampire Dark Age, which is what it says on the tin. So we were actually crusaders who were sort of involved in the siege of Jerusalem. But vampirism was sort of taking hold. So it was like the Templar Knights trying to sort of maintain the order of God, but then this sort of foul, corrupt force took over us all, and we became vampiric Templar Knights, which was... It didn't last very long, and other things happened. My best experience with World of Darkness is playing Vampire Requiem, and as you quite rightly say, Lloyd, like it's I think its strength is that it's not just a horror game, it's personal horror. It's about losing something about yourself. And one of the really cool mechanics of Requiem that has been brought over to this, I mean, it could have been, in fact, I think it probably was in Masquerade as well, but they developed it further in Requiem, which is now showing in this new alpha thing, which is touchstones. And touchstones are your character has to the non-supernatural world. Because there is a very, very sort of examination throughout the character generation about you clinging on to at least some part of humanity,
Right.
humanity versus the beast. And the more humanity you lose, the harder it is to control that beast. And you cling to your humanity with those touchstones. So those are really cool role-playing encounters, but also mechanically, they are incredibly important to how your character will develop, for good or ill. And exciting to me.
I saw in the document, as I skimmed through it earlier, those touchstones, and some of them are like, you might have a sibling or a family member, but others were just like, there's a nice person. There's just a nice person that you think is lovely, and that's like all that you need is that you can just like somebody who like rescues animals, and you might stalk them and like watch them do nice things, and that's like enough for you to feel like you're a human, which is just like so grim but so lovely as well.
It is kind of like the monster that has sort of like a heart of gold, sort of like the Phantom of the Opera, like beneath the stage, like it's, and that's what I think makes these games quite special.
Just before we keep going, Jeff has a question, which I think is a good question.
Yeah, let's go.
I have a question with the world and vampires. How embedded in the culture are vampires? Are they outsiders constantly hiding and skulking, or are they more hiding in plain sight as normal humans?
So it really depends, because the different clans of vampires have different ideologies and beliefs, and also it comes down to the personal vampire's decision of how they want to live their life. The Masquerade, I should have explained, is a political structure within the world of vampires. It is genuinely agreed by most vampires that it is better for their kind to remain hidden from humanity. That is why the Masquerade is in place. Masquerade hiding behind a mask. That's the meaning of it. There are forces in the world that disagree. But as a general rule, it is considered that hide and you don't make your presence known to the humans. But the great thing about this game, and this is something that I'm really looking forward to dealing with, especially in the early campaign, is people becoming vampires, learning the rules. Because this is going to be quite kind of like a new start for me, and I guess for you too, Lloyd, it's going to be really cool for us to go through the game and actually learn those things together. Like, what does it take to be a vampire in this world? Like, what are you going to have to go through to survive? And subterfuge is key, because if you're discovered, then it isn't just humans that are going to freak out. You can deal with humans fine. It's the other vampires that like made people aware of that are going to have a problem with you.
Yeah, there's like sheriffs and stuff, isn't there? And like various kind of figures of authority within the vampire community that like if you break the Masquerade will like deal with you.
Yeah. The sheriff is the lead enforcer of the hierarchy, and the hierarchy is essentially made up of primogens, who are leading members of the families of each clan of vampire. So there's lots of different clans, each have a family, and each of those families has a primogen who watches over their kinds of vampires, and together they basically have a council. And they also assign a sheriff, and they also have another one, which I can't remember the name of. There's a sheriff, and there's also like the secret police. I can't remember exactly what the name is, but they're even more terrifying because they'll know stuff about you that even you don't know. It's great. But to answer your question, Jeff, in that meandering kind of way, generally speaking, secrecy is the best thing to do, and the tension that you find in a lot of the games that you'll run for Vampire are trying to maintain that hidden world, which is hilarious because one of my characters went on live TV in a really, really important baseball game in New York and announced the presence of vampires because he was a Malkavian, and Malkavians are insane race of vampires. And suffice to say, he did not last long after he got taken out. But this is World of Darkness, and wraiths exist, so he came back as a ghost. So it was very funny. But yeah, so let's see. We've got lots of questions
So
now.
most of the vampires are human looking. Most of the clans look like people. In fact, I think almost all of them look like people. Many of them look like perfect people or like too perfect people, which is kind of a nice vampire trope. I really like that. They're kind of like almost off-puttingly, perfect.
Yeah.
But there is a couple of clans, and definitely one who, like, when they are embraced into vampirism, become like monsters. They're the Nosferatu, and they like look like Nosferatu. They have like the ridiculous sort of like fangs and like lose all their hair, and they've got like big long bat ears and stuff. So they become actually monstrous. So most of the clans can just walk around in the street, and like as long as they don't like use their vampire powers or like eat people in the street, they're fine. But like some of them really have to hide all the time.
And that thing I mentioned about humanity as well there, the less humanity you have, literally mechanically, it is more difficult for you to deal with human beings. So people will be able to spot if you're losing your mind and you haven't fed for like a couple of like weeks or whatever, and you've done a load of horrible stuff, it will show, which I really love. So it becomes really hard for you to hide the fact that you're this beast of the night. Which again is just really, really smart. But yeah, Nosferatu are wonderful because they have the stigma of looking horrible, but like that's the thing that though they could be anything. I find the Nosferatu very, very fascinating. Let me see. We've got other questions now. Chris from Drop Dice says my favorite character for vampire was a Brujar, a luchador set in Boston. That's very cool. A luchador
it's well. Definitely Bruja, isn't it?
Oh, I thought it was Bruja.
I think it's Spanish, and I think it means witch. Bruja. Okay. I'm almost certain. I actually meant to say this to you earlier. Maybe it's not in this, but I feel like that's an actual word.
You could honestly be right, because I've only ever said that because of the people that ran the game for me knew the game much better than I did. So I mean, they could be right. I don't know. Bruja, it would make sense, definitely. To give you sort of like a rough idea of them generically, I always think of the Bruja or the Bruja, however you call it, as kind of like the Lost Boy vampires. Like if you watch that movie, Kiefer Sutherland, right. Like like in the 80s, like that's how I envision Bruja, like almost like the Buffy vampires as well. Yeah, they're always wearing satin and with leather trousers and motorbikes. Yeah. But no, they're great, and each of the clans definitely sort of tick the box of a particular archetype of vampires, which is cool. You've got Gangrel, which are sort of like bestial kind of. They look sort of more animal-like than the others, don't they? Sort of furious looking. I'm just trying to see which ones are actually questions or statements that. Jeff says either way, this system and campaigns both sound super rad. Interest levels are at maximum. Cheers, Jeff. And he then continues to say, okay, so a vampire isn't necessarily obviously a vampire. Like if you saw one in the street, it wouldn't be obvious that it wasn't just a pale person, or it wouldn't be immediately alarming. No, Jeff, like it's just like if you walk past someone and they look particularly pale, you're like, oh, that's just, sticking out a bit more, like in the sun.
And I think the less hungry you are, the more human you look as well, right? If you like have fed recently, then like you do have sort of rosy cheeks and you look like a person, But I think like the hungrier you are, the more kind of predatory you look.
Which is another thing that we need to talk about, because not only in this game, like with other role-playing games, you potentially are given a mission or like things to do in the game, but you also have to maintain your own lifestyle as a vampire. Feeding is incredibly important because, like Lloyd said, like if you don't feed for a certain time, then it's going to start showing, which will. And you will also start to have withdrawal symptoms. Essentially, you're an addict. You're like, you need that to survive. So it's about creating. You not only create your vampire, you create the habits as well. How do you hunt as a vampire in Vampire Masquerade? It's something that I love doing. And vampire was hysterical and really fun. I'm just really intrigued to see how whoever plays in this game is going to sort of operate as well.
There's a thing that I read in that alpha thing that I thought was amazing, is that like not all blood is created equal, and if you drink from a heroin addict, you will take on some of that, and so I imagine that like rich vampires have like very carefully curated who they drink from, while like if you're living in the sewers, you got to drink from a rat. That's like not going to feel as good, which I think is great as well. It's not just like you're not just picking up a health pack. You're like got to pick your meal carefully, and that meal is a person.
Do you want me to ruin one thing for you about the campaign?
Yeah.
Like massive. It's just a little detail. There is a vampire that runs an establishment that is very, very, very well-to-do upper class vampires, right? Who specializes in the kinds of blood that he can serve. If you had the money, he could give you some blood that was drained from the Battle of the Somme. Okay, like if you wanted, like he'd be like, "This is it, man. This is like the vintage red."
Yeah, that's incredible.
If you've got the money, you can live a very, very nice lifestyle. But like you say, if you're struggling and the first person you run into in the dark streets of London or whatever is a heroin addict, then not going to be good. So let's see what else have we got. We've got Logus says the hounds are enforcers or muscle. I don't actually recall what the hounds are. Maybe they're like the sheriffs, like the sheriff perhaps. Maybe this is the other thing. Like I was saying to Lloyd, like there is an awful lot of lore that goes with Vampire the Masquerade, and I personally believe that if you're playing Masquerade, you should. Personally, I think it's better to use the in-house lore rather than make it up yourself, like because it's so good. Like, but
yeah, and there's like 25 years of it. All this like
there's a lot of it.
More even, I think, at this stage. So
so much.
They've made that over several iterations of the game, so I think it's worth looking into for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, like this is definitely going to be like lore light to begin with. Like I will give you the basic setup and like how all the clans operate and where they are in the city or whatever. But in terms of like the deep like history that has occurred, like the timeline is going to be mine, but the general principles of the clans and stuff are still going to be in place.
Yeah.
We're
very excited, Rob.
I'm really excited too. This is why I was like, look, this is going to happen next week. We're going to do it next week. So, and we're going to, I think an important thing as well is what we might address towards the end actually is maybe something that people might find useful is perhaps scheduling. And I know it's like a boring thing to like end with, but like, I think it's something that we should talk about maybe because how to go about doing that efficiently. Because I know I've had flaws when it comes to scheduling, absolutely. M6 Del Shadow says, I don't know, established vampires in True Blood were interesting, but I suppose you lose a lot of intrigue and mystery. Drop Dice says, I like the stat style vampires. The stat's great. More games don't allow them. Very cool that you're sticking with new vampire. And people are agreeing with you, Lloyd, saying it's Bruja. Bruja. That is really interesting because I would have found myself saying Bruja.
Interesting. Yeah, I feel like it means so, and I feel like even I don't know.
Oh, it definitely means something. Like it does have a translation. You're right.
Yeah, that it I think like magic or witch or something. I feel like it's because it's come up in lots of kind of peripheral things that I've watched. People will mention that someone's a Bruja and it's not about vampires, but maybe it's something.
No, that's really cool, man, and I'm glad I was told before I got it wrong.
I'm definitely.
Jay Smith says Gangrel.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just saying, Jay Smith was saying Gangrel was his favorite clan. I like the Gangrel. I never played a Gangrel, but they are interesting. I don't even know how to describe them. Gangrel, to me, like I think of Edge or Christian from wrestling back in the day.
Yeah, there was a wrestler called Gangrel as well.
There was, yeah, and he was based. Yeah. Yes, that's right. He was based on a vampire. You're right. Yes.
I remember Gangrel is what I picked when I played Bloodlines, because the little avatar was just like cool dude with like dreadlocks and he was like on all fours.
Yeah,
And I
man.
was like, this is the guy who I am. But yeah, I guess they're like the more primal ones. And I remember that I turned into a fucking monster at one stage because I hadn't eaten in a week or something. Just like, oh my god, what's happening? I also love that each clan has their own disciplines, as they're called, right? Disciplines, like their own set of powers. Like there's a pool of lots of different ones, and some of them kind of overlap between different clans. Like some of them are very common, like potency, I think, is the one with like super strength, or celerity, which is like super speed. But then some of them are really specific. So I think that Gangrel have Protean. Is that what, where are these? Do you ever just think, where does this stuff stay in my brain? I haven't played this game in so long.
No,
It's just
man.
like in there.
Well, it's quite. I know what you mean. I know what you mean. So it does stick in.
And that was all like becoming kind of bestial to like wreck faces, which was kind of cool. Yeah, that's all.
For those of you curious, and I would recommend it if you want to sort of look along with what we're talking about on this stream, you can go to worldofdarkness.com and you can register. Registered, you can not only get some information and all the different merits of the different clans, which they leave out of the PDF, I think. So you have to then register to the actual website, which is fair enough. This is all free content, to be fair. So you can get the actual details of each. But also in there as well, you get a really wicked interactive character sheet that you can save onto the website. So you always have your character sheet there wherever you are in the world. And also, it remembers your character and where they are based in your campaign. There is a world map which shows you where all the different vampire characters are in the world. There's a map of the world of darkness, and it will show you where your vampire is. And I absolutely love that they've done that.
Yeah.
So it is pretty rad. So I would recommend going over to World of Darkness. And they're not paying me. I wish they would to shill their website, but it is worth it.
There is a guy, the Gentleman Gamer, who like had been.
He does a lot of those videos, doesn't he?
When I first started in this community, he was in the brigade, and he used to on his channel do lots of. He used to like write and talk a lot about vampire. He used to like, and he would talk about an aspect of the game, but he would like write this sort of story at the beginning that he would read. And I guess over the year or so, or maybe 2 years or whatever, White Wolf contacted him, and they brought, or maybe Onyx, I think at that stage, like brought him on board or whatever. So he writes for them now, I think, which is pretty rad.
That's incredible. And I've seen some of his videos, and he knows his shit about World of Darkness, man. Like. There's a lot to know about World of Darkness.
That's how we get out there. We got to get him to follow and retweet the game.
Yeah, man. Well, like he's got some really good videos on there as well. I remember watching those a while back. I'll have to give those a watch again before we play. Yeah, guys, go over to Gentleman Gamer, say performance check, and Jarl DM sent you. So let's see. Where do we get to?
So Jeff had a question which I thought was important. With all these different plans, habits, clans, and such, how do groups of players form and stay together with such different backgrounds, or do they even stick together?
Well, that's the key. That is where the Masquerade comes into play, because where there are some vampiric organizations which definitely want to stick to their own, the Masquerade is an organization that basically makes each other work together. They're all like, look, despite our differences, despite our habits, we all have to stick together, because if we don't, we will die. So this is what we have to do. Like, it's not going to be any secret. Like, the Masquerade is going to be the very reason why all of my players in this upcoming campaign are going to have to work together, because if they don't, they will be killed.
Yeah.
Like, it is a very simple. Like, I was speaking to Lloyd, level of combat that's going to be in this campaign, and I said, look, I'm not going to say that this is going to be a combat light game. All I'm saying is that combat doesn't take very long when it comes to fighting humans, because that's primarily what you'll be going up against. However, if you do find yourself going into a vampire fight, you have to understand that if you're going into one of those fights, then death is certain. You're not, like, you don't survive. Like, if you lose, that's it, you're done. and it's like that because they have so many different abilities and methods to bring down foes, which I love because it has that tension there. You know that if there is going to be a fight, then it's going to be nasty. So you're going to want to make sure that you avoid that. But the other side of this is that, and what I mentioned with the humans, and something that I absolutely love doing in Vampire and a lot of World of Darkness games, is messing around with human beings. Okay, like there is nothing more hysterical than just and sort of fulfilling as a player to like use your abilities on humans because you are the creature of the night. That's what vampires are. So you have to have a certain degree of that. So there will be conflicts, but God, I've just gone into a rant now, Lloyd. I'm talking about fights now.
I'm very excited about this game, Rob. I can just like gush about it. I've been wanting to play a game like this for a long time, and particularly World of Darkness in general, Vampire, I think is amazing. And I've kind of like talking about it today has like reinvigorated my enthusiasm, you know?
Yeah, man. Like, and I just thinking about it, I was like, this is going to be like, for me, the way that I want to run this is it's going to be very different from how I run Lawkeepers, for example. Like, I'm just going to say, look, this is sort of the things that you need to achieve throughout this campaign.
Yeah.
Off you go. Like,
yes, excellent.
You just have like London. You can go around London, or out, you can leave London if you want. Like, but travel can be problematic. Huh?
Go on a holiday to Dublin.
You can go on a holiday to Dublin. It's not that far.
Oh, I'm gonna be Irish. Fiddly-dee.
Fiddly-dee. Are you gonna play an Irish? Oh, that would be cool if you did.
Certainly could do. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. I probably won't, but maybe. I don't know. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll just play my granddad.
Oh, that'd be funny. So anyway, Jeff says, "Oh yeah, about the why do they stick together? That's why, because of the Masquerade, and that's some good story design from the World of Darkness guys there, making sure that despite the differences, they have to work together. There are organizations out there that don't agree, though. That's all I will say. Mostly, it's a matter of assuring survival. The young ones have no power and no promise of ever attaining it without taking it by force and cunning. Grouping together can go a long way for that. Absolutely. There are, at the same time, like as much as I'm saying, there will be conflict in this game, for the vast majority, this is going to be diplomacy. It's going to be about intimidation, and it is going to be about outthinking people.
Yes.
Yes. Sheer power alone, you won't get that far because they're going to be young. Again, another thing that I'm saying to Lloyd about this campaign. I've said that you're not going to be able to be very old vampires. I've been in games where it has been allowed that people be old, but have fallen into a state of torpor, which essentially for a vampire means like they fall into stasis. They fall into sort of this coma where they have to be restored from. So people have been made into vampires, instantly fallen into torpor, say from, I don't know, and then one day you wake up and it's the one day and they're like level 1, you know? But no, they're going to be anywhere post World War II. I'm saying it's like the latest they can go. Like I think maybe even earlier. Maybe I'll push it and say like you can have only have been a vampire for like 20 years or 30 years or something.
Yeah.
You said 70s, didn't you, Lloyd? Like,
yeah, well, I guess I would have been a grown up in the 70s. You know, I would have been would be my thinking anyway. I'm not sure yet on anything, but that would be my thought that he might have been, you know, in his like mid to late 20s in the 70s, and then just like was made or embraced then, and has like. I like the idea that he just like had a normal job, or like he was, you know, just like a normal dude, and his sire was just like, this will be useful. Like I like to think that he was in a field that maybe was like up and coming, or like something that was like interesting in the 70s, and the vampire who sired him was like, I don't know about this. I'm going to take this guy and find out about it. You know.
He had shares in mini disc.
Yeah. Worked for Apple.
That went great. Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Okay. So dropped says Blood Bar, Blood Farms reminds me of Daybreakers. Yeah, man. Like, there's going to be a lot of things in there. Like, I'm going to just be drawing from all kinds of different vampiric lore and stuff. It's all in there. It's all in the book, and it should be embraced. Pardon the pun. Don't forget Blood Coffee Shop. Yeah. Oh God, I've lost my place. L5R, Chris says, is the same on lore in a lot of ways. Yeah, there's a lot of it. Bruja is Spanish for witch, by the way, Lloyd. Well done. Bruja. But that's me, like, since I was a teenager, I've been calling it Bruja, so there we go. Jay Smith says, different clans also have very different power bases within human society. They look very unkindly to anyone, even showing their face within those power structures. Yeah, this is the thing. Like, they all have... There's very strict code of etiquette amongst them, which is worrying. It's because they've been playing the power game since, like, forever. Some of them, like, some of them know, like, how to, like, manipulate people inside out, which is going to be a challenge for me because I've got to play these immortal overlords that can somehow outwit and outfox people at every turn. But that's something that I'm really looking forward to because it is literally going to be me trying to outfox them and them trying to outfox me. Not in an antagonistic way, but in a vampiric way, which is very important. Drop Dice says they are called witches of slang, and yes, that's what it means. Perfect. Drop Dice says that map is dope as shit. I don't know what you're talking about, but yeah. Jay Smith says Rob is right there. There's a ton to learn about the world of darkness. When you break into the cosmology, it gets really, really awesome. He then says the Camarilla is the organization that keeps the Masquerade. That's correct, the Camarilla. The Masquerade itself is more like the lore to make sure humans never again learn that vampires exist. Yeah, that's right. It's the Camarilla. There's also the Anarchs as well, which are the opposite of the Camarilla, which basically probably guess from their name. And
there's others as well, right? There's Sabat is another thing, and
followers of.
There's another one as well. Set. Yeah. There's a whole bunch.
Oh, are they a clan? See, this is what I mean. I'm so rusty on it, but and to be honest with you, like, I'm gonna include like a vast majority of the clans in there, but there are some that I know that I'm probably not going to include as well because some of them just wouldn't have their own place in London, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll see how I feel at the time.
I mean, there's plenty to choose from the, like, what I would consider the standard ones. You know, there's maybe 8 or something that I would consider the ones that are like that have been in it from the get-go, kind of the really big ones. There's plenty to choose from, especially when you're new to a game. It's not like, like when you're first in D&D, you're like, there's so many options. I guess if you've played Vampire for 20 years, you're like, oh, these are all old hat sort of clans or whatever. But when you're new to it, you're like, they're all amazing,
Yeah. Will Finazzo says, I'm hoping for them Malkavian. Like I will always have a soft spot for the Malkavian. I believe in Requiem, they then had another offshoot called the Malkovian as well. So they're basically the same thing. The insane vampires, the ones whose embrace gave them prophetic sort of images. Right. Are they true? Have they just gone insane? Like, I love them. I think they're fantastic. And I have big plans for the Malkavians in this game. And now to try and pronounce seem. Oh no, it's seem. I'm questioning myself now, aren't I? Because like I said Bruja, and I'm like, that's not how it's spelled or said.
I would say Tsimichi would be my guess.
Tsimichi, yes, that does ring a bell.
Would be my guess, but I mean, who knows?
Tsimichi. Jason says, I'd love to have a conversation with you about some of that sometime, Rob. Yeah, man, that sounds really cool. Drop Dice says, Gangrel in England. Yeah, man, punk rock. Look at Spike. I suppose Spike's maybe a bit more of a Bruja, I don't know, but still. Logo says, Camarilla and Sabat, that's it, Sabat are 2 powerful organizations. There are quite a few independent clans, and I think the Anarchs are the most powerful on the West Coast. Yeah, this is the thing, because I'm quite used to a lot of the narrative that was based in America. But yeah, like I'm pretty sure that they expand throughout the entire world, to be honest.
I would like to think that in England, since it's had a peerage for ever, that most of the big bad boys are all like nobility, you know, or like many of them
Oh yeah,
nobility or
easy.
like long running nobility, and like I would imagine that means that a lot of them are like Ventru, who are like the posh ones or whatever, you know. So they'd be,
True,
I would,
yeah.
yeah, I would imagine that they're the ones who are most powerful in England.
Ventru, generally speaking, always are.
Yeah.
Like they always seem to have like the upper hand, which I'm gonna be sticking to. Like I like them. I like them anyway. They're really good to have in power because they are logical. Like they're cold and logical, and they know how to use what they have. Yeah, like I'm really excited about this. And also, the other thing that I love about World of Darkness is that despite whatever particular rules that you're using, so if you're using Vampire, for example, there is nothing to say that there isn't going to be outside influence from the other presences in the World of Darkness.
Yes.
Not just humans, but that of the werewolves are terrifying in World of
Yep,
Darkness.
they will
Like,
fuck you up.
and not even, I don't even mean in like a standard werewolf way. Like older editions, one of them could basically just become like pure light, basically like a god. And like, because it's all about nature at the end of the day, werewolves are supposed to be the end of the curse that is humanity, for example.
Right.
Like, fuck those guys, we're just gonna fuck them
Yeah,
up.
I think the understanding I've always had is that, like, you know, vampires will wreck a human, but werewolves will wreck vampires. That they're like a step up in terms of combat, like a step above a vampire, and then they will ruin you, sort of.
Now, don't get me wrong, like with all of these, I mean, they should be used sparingly, but you know, the fact that mages and werewolves and changelings and
Mummies and
Prometheus,
demons, yeah.
yeah, I'll use the mummy. Mummy's hilarious. Mummy was so great. My friend ran a mummy game that was based in an American high school. It was basically Teen Wolf. It was so funny. Like there's basically a bunch of kids trying to like hide the fact that they have a mummy in the basement, and it was so good. Like I can't deny it was great. Stuff. So Drop Dice says, "Oh, I'm thinking that it could be Gangrel in Scotland and Ireland. The myth fits."
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. Like, remember, guys, like I decided on this today, so there's still some things that I need to iron out. But Will says, also looking forward to Nosferatu. And Jay Smith says, Zemisi.
Let me see. We were close.
See, this video is going to be helpful. I'll watch this back to get all the pronunciations right. I can say the names. What's next? M6 Dale Shadow says, what kind of vampire are you thinking of, Lloyd? Well, we were going to touch on a little bit of character creation. What have you been thinking, Lloyd? Let the people know.
It's so hard. I just want to play all of them. My favorite concept for a vampire is just like a nice person, just like a guy who was just like a nice dude, maybe like worked for a charity or was a doctor or something. Someone fairly, yeah, just someone fairly selfless and like maybe, you know, had like spent some time, you know, building homes in Africa, whatever it might is, right? Somebody like selfless and good and kind, is taken for whatever reason by a Nosferatu and turned, and then like this person who had like always relied on, or who had always been kind and lovely, and maybe they were also like traditionally handsome, you know, sort of charming, and then they wake up one day and they're like, oh god, I'm a monster, and they try to help, but it's so difficult because everything just flees in terror, you know. So like the kindness on the inside, monster on the outside, as opposed to like the Toreador who could be like monster on the inside but beautiful on the outside, you know. I really like that sort of dichotomy.
And also, Lloyd, that means I get to play the Incredible Hulk music every time you walk away down the road.
Yeah, that'd be great. Other than that, I love blood sorcery, so Tremere are fascinating to me. I would love to play like an occultist who like had been studying, you know, someone who was on the path to become a mage, maybe, you know, and like stumbled upon something he shouldn't have, and then because of that, a Tremere vampire embraces him, and then the other would be an actor who like was great, really talented, well-known theater actor or something like that, and then is taken because a vampire fancies him. You know, I feel like the reason that vampires embrace can be pretty trivial. You know, like they're not always these grand sort of scheming things. It might just be like, I quite fancy him, so I'm going to take him and make him immortal, you know?
I think also, like, for certain types of vampires, I think maybe Tremere, I'm right in thinking Tremere really adore art. At least I think that's them anyway.
I think Toreador is the ones who are like,
not Tremere.
Tremere, the magic-y ones.
Yeah. But either way, them seeing like a really good actor or a musician is like a fine work of art, and then thinking, I want that for my collection. I'm going to sign him.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if you're a famous actor or a musician walking around the West End, you've just been turned into a vampire, and people keep approaching you for autographs, but you're a vampire now.
And you just see like,
yeah, like groupies.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that would be tricky.
And even like the horror of having people like paparazzi like flashing photos at you all the time and stuff, you know.
And then they develop the pictures, and they're like, he's not there. I don't know if that works. I need to look to see if do they have reflections in.
I actually don't know what myths apply in World of Darkness.
I know the death is much simpler for a vampire. In this particular setting, the stake to the heart thing, as far as I'm aware, isn't a thing. You are either head removed or your body is destroyed, like completely. Right. If you are just knocked out of a fight, you go into torpor, like I was explaining, that coma.
Yeah.
In a way, like someone could throw you off a building as just even a level 1 vampire, and you won't die. Yeah. You will be fucked, but you won't die. You will just be a broken mess, an immortal broken mess, which is worse.
Horrifying, yeah.
But like vampires have good healing, so but it means that we're going to have some excellent injuries, I think. Like I was looking at the critical table today, Lloyd, like and some of them is like, you know, like you get your limb mauled or something, or like you lose an arm, or you get blinded, but if you roll over a certain amount, like it's just like dead.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, fuck now. Yeah. And because there's different types of damage in this as well, isn't there? Like in D&D, I suppose, with non-lethal and lethal, there's aggravated damage and stuff like that I'm going to have to refamiliarize myself with. But this is the thing, like, this is why I want to run it, as well as like us getting a vampire game on the go. I am going to be learning this as I go. Like, this isn't my home system. D&D has always been my home system. And I'm looking at this as a bit of a challenge for me to sort of get out of my comfort zone a bit. So whatever does happen, we shall be learning together.
Yeah, and I think that if I learn it from playing, that I'll be, you know, keen to run it as well once I kind of get a handle on the system a bit as well, because it's a fascinating world.
And I'm really, really excited. I don't know if you saw it, Lloyd. Like I did a little explanation about a scene in my live video earlier today. I won't repeat it, but like, if for those of you that are like interested, perhaps like go and check out the live video I did earlier, because in the middle of it, I sort of detail like a scene that I imagine would happen in my game that I think lends itself to the tone of what the game's going to be. I'll explain here because I don't want people watching this to have to go away and look elsewhere. But essentially, I detailed a scene where a SWAT team, armed response in London. London is currently on like a severe threat level for terror. Basically, are storming a building that at first glance appears like it's a crack den, like heroin addicts are strewn across the floor and stuff. But then as they look closer with their industrial, they see that there's these tubes running from these addicts, and there's sort of like drum and bass blaring next door. That's like do 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 do, and it starts to sound like a heartbeat and stuff, like all very visceral stuff that's sort of like building up tension. Because it's going to be like, the way I look at it, the encounters can be like the Batman Arkham games, where you go into Predator mode
Yeah.
So you'll be against a bunch of humans, but like you've got to be smart about it and use your powers like a creature of the night and stuff. For the majority, though, you can just trick people because you're vampires.
Yeah. And some of them have like mind powers, right? Where they can just be like,
exactly.
do as I say, and they're like, okay, you know,
exactly.
glamour or whatever.
Climb to the top of the building.
Yeah.
Take one extra step.
Yeah.
It's crazy what you can make people do. One of my friend's favorite things was to go up to police NYPD, just say, "Give me your gun." He started building like a business of just taking weapons off people, because weapons could be sold quite a good price in World of Darkness. So he was just like, "I'm just going to start my own arms dealing service."
I mean, you could just walk into shops and be like, "Sign over the lease to me." You know?
Yeah. You just
become real estate.
And you know what? I'm totally willing to let you guys do that, because I think it's cool for you to, like I say, you have to build a life for yourself. This is the important thing. Well, you're not human beings, but you are beings that are trying to survive in this world. You're going to need some to make your life not bearable, but so you can continue living, and you need a front if you're going to be a public-facing vampire.
I imagine that there's like pretty heavy consequences to you just going around glamoring people and making them give you stuff. It would strike me that like the Masquerade might be like, maybe don't, with a camera or whatever.
They'll be like, maybe don't, but they'll be like, look, at the end of the day, you dominated someone. They don't have a way of knowing what you are. Like, it's only when it's outrightly, look, you have exposed this completely, then it's a problem. If you dominate a human and just say, I drink your blood, that isn't a problem, you know? Like, yeah, it's really great. It's a great system. It is it's going to be like a really interesting departure for games that I've run on my channel as well. I think, like, well, obviously I've just done D&D, but also, I don't know, just letting you play in the world, man. Like, that's what I'm excited about. Ooh. And I will be giving you things to do and missions and
sure. But it's a bit more sandboxy.
Yeah, a bit more sandboxy. There's a tradition as well in World of Darkness games that I've always been involved in, is that an ambulance gets stolen at least once. Every game I've played, an ambulance has been stolen. So we'll see if that becomes a thing. Have we got any other suggestions or things?
People like the ideas about the Doctor. Will says, I remember watching a game where someone played like a 6th generation vampire and was basically chased around the entire game. I don't know what that means. Is that old or young? Old, right?
Well, I'm guessing that is old. If it's the 6th generation of anything, then yeah, I suppose it probably is. There's a really cool thing in the description that I remember from the older editions, which is when it comes to the character sheets and stat blocks of different characters, you have 5 dots for everything. But in the descriptor, it says that it is rumored that like older, more powerful vampires have like level 6 sort of like abilities and stuff, and it's like, oh, crazy. And they deliberately don't include them in the book, so you can sort of like say what they are, because they're so powerful. You're just like, this happens.
That's amazing.
It's great. It's great. Dropbox says, if I remember, stake in the heart puts you in torpor until it's removed and you can't do it yourself. That's interesting. Okay, fair enough. To be honest, I don't think I ever met anyone that tried to stake me in a game, which is kind of weird.
The vampire game.
And then at the same time, well, isn't that just like a one shot then? Like a one shot, like, because if you're in torpor and then someone takes your head off and that's it. Interesting. Jeff Doty says that scene was super rad. Totally put me in the world full on. Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. And if you do want to see me, it's just me sat there describing the scene, but like that's what I did in the live video earlier. And Grayson is asking the system. Yeah, Vampire Masquerade, as someone has said in the chat. Will says, step 1, become a vampire. Step 2, dominate a human. Take this stuff. Step 3, profit. Yeah, the other thing that I really enjoy, because it's so dark, but also makes sense, is that you can thrall people. You can, as a vampire, that thing where you sort of cut yourself or whatever and make someone drink your blood. They then become your thrall. They become addicted to the life force that you have presented them with, and thus they will do things for you. They can be your agents of the light. They can walk around in the day. One thing, sunlight is absolutely 100% fatal to vampires in this setting. There's no day walking. There is, if you're out in the sun, that's it for you. Which I like, because it one then forces you for it to be a nighttime game, but also there is that threat. The one of my friends, he was a vampire called Squeak. He was a Nosferatu. He was a boxer from the 1920s, like one of the best athletes there was. His signature weapon was a boxing glove with barbed wire wrapped around it, because he was supposed to take a fall for the mob and didn't. And throughout his many years, he sort of got this delusion or derangement, whatever it's called, because his disguise is to basically, he used to like dress up as Santa, R2 Santa, but his delusion became that his vampiric powers were attached to his Santa hat. If he didn't have his Santa hat, then he, like a placebo thing, he then didn't have his powers. So someone nicked his Santa hat, they bat at him, they fucked him up, threw him off a New York Bridge into the river, or into the sea or whatever, and then the sun starts coming up, and he's like, "Holy fuck!" It was just great. It's crazy. It's a crazy game, but it's good fun. And it is very old. Yes, it is. It's like if someone said I'm a sixth generation human, like that's super old.
Right. Yeah.
Grayson says it's just going. Is this just going to be between you and Lloyd, or is this going to be a larger party? Yeah, it's going to be a one-on-one campaign. No, I am. There are. And this is something that I should say. I suppose we should probably start wrapping up. We've been going a little while, but
yeah.
I am going to be running this, and this is. I am aiming to get this off the ground. And we'll be putting an interest post. So for those of you interested, by all means, jump over to the Absolute Tabletop group and post your interest as soon as I post it after this stream. I've got the image ready. I just need to type up the actual details. So really quickly about the scheduling, I'm planning for it to be bi-weekly. Is that because I guess Lloyd, like you're going to be in this? Does that sound right to you? Bi-weekly?
I would almost insist if I can manage that. I think that is the formula for. So what I have done most recently with new games I'm starting is tried to say we are playing on this day every 2 weeks or this day every month, and that's the only way that we can play the game, because I cannot anymore go through the nightmare of scheduling every game individually. And you know what it's like.
I do. I think, to be honest, I don't mind so much with Lawkeepers because it's once a month, and
sure,
you know,
yep.
From now on in, like I'm totally of that persuasion as well. If you want to be in these games, you're going to have to adhere to what the schedule is.
I think with a game like this, it makes sense to play frequently, I think it's important to play frequently, actually, because I think not every game is going to be, wow, oh my God, wow. There's going to be a lot, there's going to be a lot of like, okay, let's go to the pub or the club and like talk to some people.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
And like little things and like schemes that last for sessions at a time and things like that. And so I think it's important for this game to be frequent, would be my 2 cents.
I completely agree. And bi-weekly gives me enough to plan, because as much as I know about London, at the same time, I want this to be quite a well-researched game in the sense that I want it to feel like you're in London, like it's going to be like winter, I think, as well. Like it's just going to be bleak ass, like World of Darkness London, which is going to be nightmarish. Well,
you'll definitely know more about London than the players, I would imagine, unless they're also from London,
Then the only reason I chose London was because it's like, look, I want it to be somewhere that I know fairly well. Like, I did consider, because we talked about this way back when we were first talking about this game, and the idea was potentially it being Rome or Prague, but I thought, well, it's going to start in London. Like, if you go elsewhere, I'm not going to stop you.
Sure.
Like, if you go out into the, like I was thinking at some point, you could go like into, I don't know, the Peak District or something, and you run into werewolves, because werewolves, it makes more sense for them to not be in such an urban area.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna hold werewolves back. I don't know if I'll
Probably
put them
best.
in, but we'll see. Yeah, definitely when you're not great, like powerful either. Quickly, just going to read the last few comments. Will says, "Okay, I checked. He was Gen 8. Oh, there you go." Jay Smith is saying something about blood bonds. It's also how the eldest control the younger kindred. That's correct. Star Shadow says Vampire Screech. So like Saved by the Bell Screech. Is that what you mean? Also, the game where all the players can be super evil. That's something else because I don't personally believe that they are going to be evil.
No, I won't be.
They're not going to be good. They're not
No.
going to be good, but I think it's much more interesting for them to be in Shades of Grey. I always find this. It's been every game that I've run. I'm like, you do what you want. Like, there will be benefits for you being good. There will be lures to make you want to do less nice things. We shall see how it goes. That's the beauty of the system. Darkness within you. And Chris says my schedule is getting clearer. Just saying. Oh, really, Chris? I thought you said you wanted to watch this. Interesting. We shall have to wait and see, won't we? So I think we're done, aren't we, Lloyd?
I think we're done. Yep, that was good. You nailed it.
I really enjoyed talking about it, man. I'm really excited about this game. I'm stoked, and I'm putting my foot down. It's going to be next week. We're going to do it next week. So thank you ever so much for watching, guys. For those of you interested in playing in this game, jump over to Absolute Tabletop when I post the interest and let me know your character concepts. You know, it'll be really cool to see who wants to play what. And don't forget to go over to worldofdarkness.com and register just to read the really cool stuff that's over there. They are literally completing their alpha stage right now. I think they might just be going into beta. It's well worth to jump on board whilst this stuff is fresh again. So thanks, Lloyd, for joining me as ever. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And I hope that all of your performances are up to standard. Wink.